The wedding invitation arrived 6 months after Milo Sutter lost his baby and 4 months after the alpha he had loved stopped answering his calls. Heavy ivory cardstock. Gold foil. His ex-boyfriend's name beside another Omega's beneath the words, "A perfect match." Milo stood behind the work table in his tiny book restoration studio and stared until the letters blurred. He had spent months learning how to repair torn pages while quietly accepting that some things could not be repaired. The pregnancy, his relationship, the future he had stupidly pictured whenever he touched his still flat stomach and wondered whose eyes their child might have. Worst of all was the apology he had given the man who left him. I'm sorry my body couldn't keep our baby." His alpha had held him then and said, "These things happen." Apparently, so did weddings. Milo almost laughed. It came out sounding like a broken breath. "Congratulations, I guess." He dropped the invitation toward the trash, missed, and watched it strike the edge of his workbench. The inner lining separated slightly at one corner. Milo froze. Most people would not have noticed. Milo repaired 19th century books for museums and private collectors. He noticed paper the way musicians noticed wrong notes. The lining had been lifted once and glued back badly. "Seriously," he muttered. Even heartbreak offended his professional standards. He should have thrown it away. Instead, Milo reached for his microspatula, slid the thin tool beneath the loose edge, and carefully separated the adhesive. Something crackled inside. Not cardstock. Paper. A small folded sheet slipped free and landed beside his hand. Milo stared at it. Pharmacy header. Patient name, Milo Sutter. His pulse stumbled. What? He unfolded it completely. The prescription date was from the week he had discovered he was pregnant. Milo read the medication name once. Twice. Then a third time because his brain kept refusing to understand what his eyes already had. He remembered his boyfriend standing in their kitchen with a glass of water and a little white pill. "The doctor wants you on this right away. It'll help stabilize things." Milo had swallowed it. Without hesitation. Why wouldn't he? He had trusted the alpha whose hand rested protectively against his back while he drank. 2 days later, Milo had started cramping. Then came the hospital. Then the terrible quiet. Milo gripped the workbench. For 6 months, he had carried one explanation like a stone inside his chest. My body failed. But the prescription in front of him suggested something else. Something so ugly he wanted desperately to misunderstand it. He pulled up the medical portal he had avoided since the loss. His fingers shook so badly he mistyped his password twice. The medication his ex claimed had been prescribed to support the pregnancy was nowhere in Milo's discharge summary. The prescription in his hand named something entirely different, something associated with ending a pregnancy in their ABO healthcare system. No, Milo pushed away from the computer. No, he wouldn't. But another memory surfaced. His boyfriend insisting on collecting every prescription himself. His sudden obsession with privacy. The strange relief on his face when the doctor confirmed the pregnancy had ended. Then, weeks later, the breakup. Milo looked at the wedding invitation. A perfect match. His stomach turned. He had been replaced by the kind of Omega his ex's wealthy family had always wanted. Polished, connected, socially impeccable. Milo was a book conservator who wore thrift store sweaters and occasionally forgot lunch because a damaged first edition needed him. His phone felt impossibly heavy when he picked it up. Months earlier, a colleague whose mate worked in healthcare had given him a name after Milo mentioned problems obtaining records. Dorian Voss, patient rights attorney. Alpha. Milo had never called. Calling would have meant admitting there might be something to investigate. Tonight, he pressed the number. It rang once. Twice. Voss. The voice was low, controlled, impatient in the way of someone accustomed to emergencies. Milo nearly hung up. "My name is Milo Sutter. I think somebody gave me medication without telling me what it really was." Silence. Not disbelief. Attention. "Are you safe right now?" Dorian asked. The question hit Milo harder than he expected. Nobody had asked him that. Not once. Yes. Good. Tell me only what you know. Milo looked down at the invitation. "I was pregnant. My boyfriend gave me a pill he said would protect the pregnancy. I lost it 2 days later. He left me afterward. He's getting married now, and tonight I found a prescription with my name on it hidden inside their wedding invitation." Dorian's tone changed instantly. "Milo, don't throw anything away. I wasn't planning to. Don't write on it. Don't clean it. Don't separate anything else." Milo almost objected on professional principle. I'm a paper conservator. Another pause. Then you already understand evidence preservation better than most people who call me. It was such a simple sentence, but Milo straightened. Dorian had not called him fragile. Emotional. Confused. He had recognized something Milo could do. Photograph exactly how everything is positioned, Dorian continued. Then place the invitation, lining, and prescription in separate archival sleeves if you have them. Milo glanced toward the cabinet behind him. I have about 400. For the first time, warmth touched Dorian's voice. Of course you do. Milo almost smiled. Almost. Mr. Voss, what if I'm wrong? Dorian did not give him false comfort. Then we establish that with facts. And if I'm right? The silence lasted one heartbeat. Then you stop carrying responsibility for a decision somebody else made without your consent. Milo closed his eyes. For 6 months, he had wanted someone to tell him the loss was not proof that he was defective. Dorian offered something better than reassurance. He offered a way to know. Milo carefully slid the prescription into an archival sleeve. His hands were still shaking, but now they had a task. A direction. Can you come to my office tomorrow morning? Dorian asked. Milo looked at the gold lettering on the invitation, at the names announcing a perfect future built over the wreckage of his own. Yes. Bring everything. Milo swallowed. I will. He was about to end the call when Dorian added, quieter, Milo. Yeah. Whatever that paper proves tomorrow, tonight you do not have to decide what happens next. Milo stared at his own name printed across the prescription. 6 months ago, someone else might have made an irreversible choice for him. Tomorrow, for the first time since then, Milo would begin making choices for himself. And somewhere across the city, an alpha he had never met was waiting to help him discover exactly what had been taken from him, and who had taken it. At 8:57 the next morning, Milo stood in the marble lobby of Voss Legal Group, holding 3 archival sleeves against his chest like they contained his last functioning organs. The building occupied 26 floors of glass and steel downtown, and apparently Dorian Voss owned enough of the 24th to make Milo suddenly aware that his nicest coat had a loose button. At reception, Milo gave his name. The receptionist looked up immediately. Mr. Voss asked that you be taken straight in. That was strange enough. Stranger was what happened when a sharply dressed alpha intercepted them halfway down the hall. Dorian, I need 5 minutes before the Hallberg conference. The man who stepped from the corner office was taller than Milo expected, dark-haired, immaculate, and carrying the kind of stillness that made everyone nearby unconsciously lower their voices. Dorian glanced at his watch. You have the conference room until 9:30. I need you. You have 6 attorneys. The client specifically requested you. Dorian looked past him at Milo. My 9 o'clock specifically requested the truth. The other alpha blinked. Dorian opened his office door for Milo. Reschedule me if necessary. Milo walked inside trying not to stare. Yesterday, Dorian had been a voice on the phone. Today, he was apparently the kind of man powerful people argued over and still did not get what they wanted. You did not have to move something important for me, Milo said. Dorian closed the door. I did not. Milo frowned. That sounded important. So is this. No performance. No dramatic sympathy. Dorian simply pulled out a chair across from his desk and waited until Milo sat before taking his own. May I see what you brought? Milo placed the sleeves down. Dorian reached toward the prescription, then stopped with his fingers several inches away. May I handle it? Milo stared at him. You are my attorney. That was not my question. Something inside Milo went unexpectedly quiet. His ex had never asked before taking his phone to answer messages, scheduling his medical appointments, ordering food for him, speaking for him at clinics. At the time, Milo had called it protective. Dorian Voss could probably intimidate a courthouse into apologizing, yet he was waiting for permission to touch one piece of paper. Yes, Milo said. You can. Dorian examined the sleeve without removing its contents. Walk me through exactly what you noticed. Milo did. The loose lining, the adhesive, the fold pattern, the difference between machine-cut invitation stock and the thinner prescription paper. Dorian asked precise questions and never interrupted. 10 minutes in, Milo forgot to be intimidated. 20 minutes in, he was leaning across the desk pointing out a faint compression line near the pharmacy header. This was folded before it was put inside the invitation, Milo said. See that ridge? It does not align with the invitation fold. Dorian studied it, then looked at Milo rather than the paper. That matters. It does. It may establish that this document existed independently before somebody concealed it here. Milo swallowed. You believe me. Dorian's expression tightened. I believe evidence. And right now, you are the person in this room who understands this physical evidence best. The words landed somewhere Milo had been keeping boarded shut. Not poor Milo. Not devastated Omega. Not the man whose body failed. Useful. Competent. Worth listening to. Milo looked away before his face betrayed him. Dorian noticed anyway. He did not mention it. Instead, he slid a legal pad across the desk. I want a timeline in your words. No conclusions. No guessing. Just what you remember. Milo began with the positive pregnancy test. His ex had seemed surprised, then strangely practical. He took over appointments. Picked up medications. Told Milo stress was dangerous and that he should let his alpha handle things. Milo stopped writing. That sounds worse when I say it out loud. Hey, lot of control sounds like care when it arrives wearing the right clothes, Dorian said quietly. Milo looked up. For the first time, the polished attorney seemed less untouchable. There was something personal behind that sentence, something Dorian immediately locked away again. Milo did not push. Not yet. He continued. When he reached the morning his ex had handed him the pill, his pen stalled. He gave me water, Milo whispered. He kissed my forehead. I thanked him. Dorian's jaw tightened. Milo, please do not tell me I should have known. I was going to tell you that trusting someone you loved is not evidence of stupidity. Milo stared at him. That was the first kindness that hurt more than cruelty. He breathed slowly until the room stopped feeling too small. Then Dorian turned his monitor toward him. There is something else you need to understand. If we request the complete dispensing records, the clinic and pharmacy will be required to preserve relevant documentation. Your former partner may realize questions are being asked, so he will know I found it. Possibly. And if he tries to make it disappear? Dorian's expression became very still. Then he will discover why people hire me. Milo almost smiled. There it was. The frightening man everyone outside this office apparently knew. But Dorian did not use that power to make Milo's decision for him. He placed the authorization form on the desk and moved his pen beside it without pushing either closer. I can start today, or you can walk out with everything and never hear from me again. Both choices are yours. Milo looked at the form. Yesterday, he had been afraid of what the prescription might prove. Today, he was more afraid of returning to ignorance. He picked up the pen. Start today. Dorian nodded once, but something in his eyes softened. Milo signed. Dorian signed beneath him. 2 names on the same page, and for once Milo understood exactly what he was agreeing to. Dorian immediately reached for his phone. Preservation notices go out within the hour. From this point forward, if anyone contacts you about the prescription, the medication, or the invitation, you call me before responding. Milo raised an eyebrow. That sounded suspiciously like an order. Dorian paused, then corrected himself without defensiveness. Would you be willing to call me first? Milo finally smiled. Yes. Dorian looked briefly caught off guard, as if smiles were not common outcomes in his office. Then his phone lit up. He read the incoming message, and the softness vanished. That was fast. Milo's stomach tightened. What? Dorian turned the screen toward him. The clinic had acknowledged the preservation request. Less than 1 minute later, another message had arrived on Milo's own phone. From his ex. We need to talk. Milo stared at it, old fear rising automatically. Then he looked at Dorian. Yesterday, he would have answered alone. Today, he locked the screen and placed the phone face down between them. I think I will take your advice. Dorian met his eyes. Good. And for the first time since losing his pregnancy, Milo realized the truth was no longer something hunting him from behind. He had turned around to face it, and now he was not facing it alone. The message from Milo's ex sat unanswered for exactly 43 minutes. Dorian did not tell him to ignore it. He did something more irritating. He made Milo decide. I hate that you keep doing that, Milo muttered from the conference room, staring at his phone. Dorian looked up from a stack of medical records. Doing what? Giving me choices when ordering me around would be significantly easier. You hired the wrong attorney for that. Milo almost smiled. Almost. By noon, the clinic had released the first batch of records, and Dorian had moved them into a larger conference room because his legal team needed to establish a timeline. 3 attorneys, a paralegal, and Milo sat around a polished walnut table while Dorian stood at the head. Milo immediately regretted agreeing to stay. Everyone else spoke fluent legal language. Milo restored damaged books for a living. He knew linen thread, Japanese tissue, wheat starch paste, paper grain, ink migration. None of that seemed useful here. One attorney flipped through the pharmacy pages. The problem is proving what Mr. Sutter actually received. A prescription existing does not establish administration. Milo's stomach dropped. Another attorney nodded. Without direct evidence, opposing counsel will characterize his recollection as grief-related confusion. There it was. Confused omega. Emotional omega. Unreliable omega. Milo lowered his eyes. Then Dorian said, "Stop." The room went silent. His voice was not loud. Apparently, it did not need to be. Dorian walked around the table, picked up the archival sleeve containing the prescription, and placed it carefully in front of Milo without touching the paper itself. You are discussing the document while ignoring the person who discovered what was unusual about it. The first attorney shifted. Dorian, I was only saying, I know what you were saying. Dorian looked at Milo. Tell them what you told me. Every face turned toward him. Milo wanted to disappear under the table. Instead, he looked at the paper. Paper was safe. Paper did not pity him. The fold happened before the prescription was hidden, he said. How can you know that? The paralegal asked. Milo pointed through the sleeve. Compression damage. Paper fibers remember pressure. This crease has been opened and closed repeatedly. The invitation lining was disturbed once. The attorney leaned closer. Milo continued, gaining confidence. And the adhesive used to reseal the lining is not the same adhesive used in the original assembly. Whoever hid this did it later. Silence. Dorian's gaze stayed on him, steady and unmistakably proud. So, Dorian said to his team, we do not have a grieving client making guesses. We have a trained paper conservator identifying physical alterations within his professional expertise. Treat his observations accordingly. Milo forgot how breathing worked for approximately 2 seconds. Nobody had defended him by making him smaller. Dorian had done the opposite. He had made the room recognize what Milo could do. The meeting changed after that. People asked Milo questions instead of discussing him, as if he were furniture. He noticed the pharmacy print stock matched another page from the clinic packet. He identified a faint pressure mark suggesting the prescription had once been clipped to additional documents. Dorian immediately requested the corresponding records. By 3, Milo had stopped clutching his coffee like emotional support equipment. Then the medical timeline finally came together. The pregnancy had been documented as viable at Milo's last appointment before the medication. No physician had prescribed the stabilizing pill his ex claimed Milo needed. Instead, the prescription found inside the invitation had been issued separately, under Milo's name, days before his ex placed that white tablet in his hand. Milo stared at the dates. I thanked him, he whispered. The conference room emptied quietly at Dorian's signal. Nobody argued. When the door closed, Milo remained staring at the same line. I apologized afterward. At the hospital, I told him I was sorry I could not keep our baby. Dorian moved closer, then stopped. Not touching. Never assuming. Milo. He told me these things happen. His voice cracked despite his best effort. What kind of person lets someone apologize for something he deliberately caused? Dorian's composure slipped. Just slightly. His hand tightened against the back of the empty chair beside Milo. Anger, controlled so carefully it somehow felt more powerful than shouting. I can call the clinic and continue without you for the afternoon. Milo shook his head. No. I want to know everything. You do not have to prove strength to me. I am not. Milo finally looked at him. I am proving it to myself. Something changed in Dorian's face. Respect had been there before. This was different. Softer. More personal. Then we keep going, he said. Milo nodded, but his hands had started shaking. Dorian placed one palm on the table between them. An offer, not a demand. Would it help if I came closer? Milo looked at that hand. Powerful enough to sign letters that made clinics respond within hours. Gentle enough to wait. Milo slowly placed his own hand over it. Dorian did not squeeze until Milo did first. Warmth traveled through Milo's fingers, simple and grounding. Thank you, Milo whispered. For what? For not treating me like the weakest person in every room. Dorian's eyes held his. You are not. His phone buzzed against the table. Dorian glanced at it, and Milo caught a brief image on the screen before it disappeared. A message about a Voss Family Foundation dinner that evening. followed by a reminder marked mandatory. Dorian dismissed both without answering. Milo frowned. You have somewhere important to be. So do I. Where? Dorian turned the next medical record toward him. Here. The answer should not have affected Milo. It did. Before he could decide what that meant, his own phone rang. His ex again. This time, Milo did not freeze. He looked at Dorian, then at their joined hands. I think I am ready to answer. Dorian started to pull away. Milo held on. Stay. Dorian went completely still. Then he sat beside Milo instead of across from him. Milo accepted the call and switched on the speaker. His ex did not bother saying hello. Milo, whatever you found, you need to give it back. Milo felt Dorian's hand beneath his, steady and warm. Yesterday, those words might have frightened him. Today, they confirmed something. His ex knew exactly what had been hidden. Milo lifted his chin. Then I guess you had better explain why you want it so badly. Give it back. Milo repeated, keeping his voice steadier than he felt. Across the speaker, his ex went silent. Dorian sat beside Milo without moving, his hand still beneath Milo's. But his expression had changed completely. The warmth was gone from his eyes. What remained was the attorney people apparently crossed hallways to avoid. You know what I mean, his ex finally said. The invitation. Whatever was inside it. This has gone far enough. Milo almost laughed. 6 months of blaming himself, and apparently asking one question was going too far. Then explain why my prescription was hidden inside your wedding invitation. Another pause. It was a mistake. Which part? Milo asked. The prescription? Hiding it? Or sending it to me? Dorian's thumb shifted once beneath Milo's fingers. Approval. Nothing more. His ex exhaled sharply. You are upset. I understand that. Milo's stomach tightened. He knew that tone. Soft. Patient. The voice that used to make every disagreement feel like proof Milo was unreasonable. You have been through something traumatic, his ex continued. You are connecting things that are not connected. Milo's grip on Dorian's hand tightened before he could stop himself. Dorian did not take over. He simply turned a legal pad toward Milo and wrote 3 words. Let him talk. Milo understood. Okay, he said quietly. Then help me understand. His ex relaxed immediately. Good. That is all I want. The medication was complicated. Your pregnancy was already unstable. Milo's chest went cold. The records in front of him said otherwise. And the prescription? There were several medications involved. You probably do not remember everything clearly. Dorian's jaw flexed. Milo looked at him. One alpha was calmly rewriting Milo's memories. The other was furious and still refusing to speak over him. The difference was almost painful. Why do you want the paper back? Milo asked. Because it is private medical information. Mine. Silence. Milo. My name is on it. His ex's patience cracked. What do you want from me? There it was. Not concern. Not confusion. Fear. Milo looked down at the gold-edged invitation. The truth. You want money? Milo recoiled. Dorian's gaze sharpened. No, because if this is about what you lost financially, I can make that right. Quietly. There is no reason to embarrass everyone because you are still angry that I moved on. For one terrible second, Milo was back in every expensive restaurant where his ex had corrected his clothes. Every family dinner where someone had asked whether book repair was a real career. Every moment he had been made to feel grateful that a wealthy alpha had chosen him at all. Then Dorian calmly removed his hand from beneath Milo's. The loss of warmth startled him. Dorian reached for a folder instead and placed Milo's professional resume beside the prescription. Conservation certifications. Museum contracts. Years of specialized work. Dorian tapped the page once, then looked directly at Milo. He did not need to say anything. Remember who you are. Milo breathed. You always thought I was easy to embarrass, he said into the phone. I think that was because you spent a lot of time teaching me I should be embarrassed. His ex went quiet. I am not asking for money. I am asking what you gave me. Do not do this. Then answer. The call ended. Milo stared at the dark screen. His hands were shaking again, but this time something underneath the fear felt almost like anger. He hung up. Yes. You knew he would. I suspected he would stop talking when the questions became specific. Milo looked at Dorian. Why did you not say anything? Dorian seemed genuinely confused by the question. Because he called you. Such a simple answer. Milo looked away quickly. Most alphas I know would have taken the phone. Then most alphas you know need better manners. A laugh escaped Milo before he could stop it. Dorian blinked, and for half a second the terrifying attorney disappeared. He looked almost pleased with himself. Then someone knocked and entered before receiving permission. The same senior attorney from earlier stepped inside, followed by a silver-haired man in an expensive charcoal suit. The older alpha's eyes moved from Dorian to Milo, then to their chairs positioned unusually close together. "You missed the Foundation dinner briefing," he said. Dorian did not stand. "I was working on this." The man's glance landed on Milo with clinical dismissal. "The Sutter matter can be delegated." Milo immediately understood. "Family? Power? Probably both." Dorian's face became unreadable. "Milo Sutter is sitting 3 feet away from you." The older man barely reacted. "Then Mr. Sutter understands that the Hallberg account and tonight's Foundation dinner affect several hundred employees. And Mr. Sutter's case concerns whether someone used medical authority and an alpha-omega relationship to remove his ability to make a decision about his own body." Dorian's voice remained perfectly calm. "I will not rank that beneath a dinner." The room went silent. Milo wished he could disappear and, strangely, wanted to stay exactly where he was. The older alpha studied Dorian for a long moment. "You are making this personal." Dorian's answer came too quickly. "I am doing my job." Milo noticed it. So did the older man. Neither commented. Finally, the man left. Dorian immediately turned back to Milo, and his voice softened as if a door had closed between this room and the rest of the world. "Are you all right?" Milo stared at him. Dorian had just dismissed someone who looked capable of buying Milo's entire building, and his first concern was whether Milo was comfortable. "Who was that?" "My father." Milo blinked. "Of course it was." Dorian almost smiled. His phone buzzed. This time the message came from his legal team. The pharmacy had responded to their preservation notice. Milo watched Dorian read it twice. "What?" Dorian turned the screen toward him. "They located an associated dispensing packet." Milo's heart began pounding. "Associated with my prescription?" "Yes." "Can we get it?" Dorian looked at the invitation, then at the faint pressure marks Milo had discovered. "We already requested it." Another message arrived seconds later. Dorian's expression sharpened. "And your former boyfriend contacted the pharmacy this afternoon asking whether those records could be amended." Milo went completely still. The fear should have returned. Instead, he felt something else settle into place. His ex was no longer denying that the records mattered. He was trying to control them. Milo looked at Dorian. "He knows we are getting close." Dorian nodded. "Which means from now on, the pressure gets worse." Milo glanced toward the door his father had just walked through, then back at the alpha who had chosen to remain beside him anyway. Yesterday, Milo had needed an attorney. Somewhere between yesterday and now, he had gained something far more dangerous to the man trying to silence him. He had someone who believed he deserved to be heard. Milo pulled the next folder toward them. "Then we get closer." Dorian's eyes held his for one quiet second before he moved his chair back beside Milo's. Together, by 9 the next morning, the pharmacy packet was sitting on Dorian's conference table, and Milo knew something was wrong before anyone said a word. Dorian had read the first page 3 times. His legal team had stopped making eye contact with him. Even the paralegal who normally narrated every discovery like an excited detective had gone completely silent. Milo folded his arms. "I am starting to recognize the Voss legal group face for bad news." Nobody laughed. Dorian closed the packet. "Give us the room." His team disappeared with impressive speed. Milo remained standing. "That is definitely worse." "Milo, do not use the careful voice." "I hate the careful voice." Dorian looked toward the glass wall, then pressed a control that turned it opaque. That tiny action made Milo's stomach tighten. "There is information in the dispensing packet that affects how we proceed." "About the medication?" "Yes. And about me." Milo stared at him. Suddenly, the missed Foundation dinner, Dorian's father appearing personally, the mandatory messages, and the strange tension whenever the clinic came up rearranged themselves inside his head. "What about you?" Dorian slid the packet across the table. Milo looked down. Beneath the pharmacy authorization was a corporate disclosure page. At the bottom, in small print, sat a name he recognized immediately. Voss Family Health Foundation. Milo read it twice. "Your family funds the clinic." "Partially." Milo looked up. "Partially. The foundation financed its reproductive care expansion 3 years ago. My father sits on the foundation board." The room seemed to tilt. "You knew?" Dorian did not insult him by pretending otherwise. I learned there was a connection after the first preservation response came back. Milo's chest tightened. That was 2 days ago. Yes. You sat beside me for 2 days knowing your family had financial ties to the clinic involved in my case. Yes. The honesty somehow hurt worse. Milo stepped away from the table. Why did you not tell me? Because I needed to determine whether it created a legal conflict before alarming you with incomplete information. You needed to determine. Dorian went still. Milo heard his own words and hated how familiar they sounded. Someone else deciding what Milo needed to know. Someone else deciding when he was ready. You told me every choice was mine. It is. Not if you decide which facts I get before I make it. Dorian flinched. Barely. But Milo saw it. You are right. Milo had prepared himself for an argument. The immediate admission knocked some of the anger sideways. Do not agree with me just because I am upset. I am agreeing because I made exactly the mistake I told you I would not make. Dorian removed a folder from his briefcase and placed it on the table. I initiated an independent conflict review yesterday. I also arranged outside counsel who can take over immediately at no cost to you if you want me removed. Milo stared at the folder. Dorian had prepared for Milo to leave him. That realization did not make Milo feel better. Were you ever going to tell me? Today? Before we used anything from this packet? After you decided what it meant? Dorian's silence answered for him. Milo turned toward the window. 24 floors below, traffic moved through the city like nothing important had happened. My ex kept information from me because he thought he knew what was best for my life. I know. Do you? Milo turned back. Because you are nicer about it, Dorian. You asked before touching me. You give me choices. But this time you decided I could wait for the truth because you thought you could manage it first. Dorian's face lost its courtroom armor. For the first time, Milo saw not the feared attorney or wealthy alpha, but a man genuinely ashamed. My father believes problems become harmless if the right person controls them, Dorian said quietly. I spent most of my life trying not to become him. He glanced at the folder between them. Apparently trying is not the same as succeeding. Milo wanted to stay angry. It would have been easier if Dorian defended himself. Instead, Dorian stepped away from the table, creating physical space between them. The foundation connection does not mean my family participated in what happened to you. There is no evidence of that, and I will not invent one. But the relationship matters because opposing counsel could challenge my independence, and because you deserve to know before I made another decision. Yes, I did. I am sorry. No excuse followed. Milo looked at the man who had made him feel heard for the first time in months and realized trust was more frightening than suspicion. Suspicion could not disappoint you. I need some distance, Milo said. Pain crossed Dorian's expression before control returned. You have it. And I want copies of everything. They are already yours. Dorian pushed nothing toward him. He simply stepped aside. Milo gathered the packet himself. Then one page caught his attention. A faint rectangular pressure mark crossed the upper corner. He stopped. Paper fibers. Again. Milo pulled the prescription sleeve from his portfolio and placed the two sheets side by side. Same stock. Same compression pattern. Same tiny indentation where a metal clip had pressed into both pages. His anger temporarily gave way to concentration. Dorian. Dorian did not approach. What do you see? Milo pointed. These were clipped together. The prescription and the dispensing authorization? Not just those. Milo flipped deeper into the packet. A missing page notation appeared between two numbered records. Page 6. The packet jumped from 5 to 7. Milo's pulse accelerated. There was another document between them. Dorian's focus sharpened, but he remained where Milo had asked him to stay. That mattered. Even now it mattered. Can you establish that? I can establish that the physical sequence is incomplete. Milo examined the impressions under the conference room light. And whoever removed page 6 did it after these pages had been assembled. Dorian reached for his phone, then stopped himself. What do you want to do? There it was. Not what he intended to do. What Milo wanted. Milo looked at the outside counsel folder, then at Dorian. Part of him wanted to say stay. Another part was not ready. Request page 6, Milo said. Through independent counsel. Dorian's expression tightened, but he nodded. Done. Milo gathered his things. At the door, Dorian spoke once. Milo. Milo paused without turning. Whatever page 6 says, you were right about something yesterday. You are not the weakest person in this room. Milo closed his eyes for half a second. Then do not protect me by keeping me in the dark. Never again. Milo left before he could decide whether he believed that promise. 40 minutes later, while sitting alone in his restoration studio, an encrypted message arrived from the independent attorney Dorian had arranged. The clinic had located page 6. Milo opened the scanned document, read the first 3 lines, and forgot his anger for one stunned heartbeat. It was a signed acknowledgement connected to the medication, dated before the day his ex gave him the pill. Milo had never seen it. He had never signed it. And suddenly the question was no longer whether someone had hidden the truth from him. The question was how far they had gone to make it look as though Milo had agreed. Rain had started by the time Milo finished reading page 6 for the 4th time. It tapped against the restoration studio windows while he sat beneath his work lamp, staring at a signature shaped almost like his and feeling as though someone had stolen more than his consent. They had stolen his handwriting, too. His phone buzzed. Not Dorian. The independent attorney had sent a short confirmation. The original document would be preserved for examination. Milo should have felt relieved. Instead, he felt exhausted. Another buzz came 10 minutes later. Still not Dorian. That surprised him more than it should have. Dorian had promised distance, and apparently Dorian Voss treated promises like court orders. By 7:30, rain was hammering the windows. Milo finally opened their message thread. He typed 3 words. I found it. The reply arrived almost immediately. I know. Milo stared. No questions. No demand to come over. He typed again. You're not going to ask? Dorian answered. You asked for distance. Milo hated how much that mattered. He looked around his empty studio, at the archival boxes and damaged books waiting patiently for hands that suddenly felt too tired to repair anything. Then he wrote, I do not want distance tonight. 22 minutes later, Dorian walked through the studio door carrying 2 paper bags and an umbrella that looked as though the weather had personally insulted it. His expensive coat was soaked across one shoulder. You walked? Milo asked. 3 blocks. Traffic stopped moving. You look terrible. Thank you. Dorian placed the bags on the work table. Soup, sandwiches, bottled water. Nothing dramatic. Nothing Milo had requested. Have you eaten? Milo looked away. That sounds like an accusation. It was a question. Then no. Dorian unpacked the soup without another word. Milo watched him remove his watch before rolling up his sleeves and noticed the old silver ring on his right hand. The same crest Milo had seen embossed on Foundation correspondence. Boss family. Dorian caught him looking. My grandfather's. Foundation. Everything, eventually. Milo frowned. You are expected to run it. Dorian nodded. My father has been preparing me since I was 19. And you became an attorney who sues institutions like his. A tired smile touched Dorian's mouth. You see the problem. They ate at Milo's workbench beneath the warm pool of the restoration lamp. For several minutes, neither mentioned page 6. That was another thing Milo noticed. Dorian did not turn every silence into an interrogation. Finally, Milo said, the signature is close. Dorian set down his spoon. But not yours. No. I make my living studying marks people leave on paper. Whoever copied it understood the shape, but not the rhythm. Milo swallowed. I should be fascinated professionally. Instead, I feel sick. Dorian's hand moved, then stopped on the table. What would help? Milo looked at him. Tell me why you did not tell me about your family. Dorian leaned back slowly. Not the legal answer? I already heard that one. Rain filled the silence. Because I was afraid you would leave, Dorian said. Milo had expected responsibility. Conflict rules. His father. Not that. Dorian looked down at the silver ring. My family taught me that being useful is the safest way to keep people close. Solve the problem. Control the variables. Never become the problem yourself. His thumb turned the ring once. When I realized the Foundation connection existed, I thought if I could solve it before telling you, you would never have a reason to doubt me. So you controlled the variable. Yes. The variable being me. Dorian winced. Yes. Milo appreciated that he did not soften it. That hurt. I know. And understanding why does not erase it. I know that too. Milo studied him. The alpha who could silence conference rooms. Looked strangely alone beneath Milo's cheap brass work lamp. You could have sent somebody else tonight. You asked me. That is not an answer. Dorian met his eyes. No, it is not. Something warm and frightening moved through Milo's chest. He stood before he could examine it too closely and began collecting the empty containers. Fatigue made his fingers clumsy. One slipped. Dorian caught it before it hit the floor, then immediately stepped back instead of crowding him. You are exhausted. I am functional. Those are not synonyms. Milo laughed despite himself. Attorney joke? Concern. The word landed softly. Dorian glanced toward the ring. Let me drive you home. Milo hesitated. You are not my attorney right now. Dorian's expression shifted. I know. Then why are you still here? Dorian looked at him for a long moment. I am trying very hard not to answer that before you are ready to hear it. Milo's heart did something deeply inconvenient. That might be the first time your self-control has annoyed me. Dorian almost smiled. Milo reached for his coat. You can drive me home. It was not forgiveness. It was not restored trust. But when they stepped outside, Dorian held the umbrella over Milo and took the rein across his own shoulder without seeming to notice. Halfway to the car, Milo quietly moved closer so they both fit beneath it. Dorian looked down but said nothing. He did not need to. At Milo's apartment, neither moved immediately to open the car door. Milo finally said, Tomorrow, I want you back on the case with independent counsel overseeing the Foundation conflict. Dorian went still. Are you sure? No, Milo looked at him. That is what rebuilding trust means. I am choosing before certainty. Dorian nodded slowly. Then I will earn the rest. Milo reached for the door, but Dorian's phone rang. He answered, listened, and every trace of warmth disappeared from his face. A pause. Preserve everything. Milo's stomach tightened. What happened? Dorian ended the call. Your former boyfriend has retained counsel. That was expected. Yes. Dorian looked at him. This was not. His attorneys sent notice that they intend to publicly characterize you as an unstable former partner attempting to interfere with the wedding. Milo felt the old shame reach for him. Then he remembered the conference room. The records. Page 6. Dorian standing in the rain because Milo had asked him to come. Milo straightened. Then they are going to be disappointed. Dorian's gaze softened again, only for him. Why? Milo opened the car door. Because this time, I am not disappearing. By Friday afternoon, Milo had learned that humiliation moved faster than evidence. His former boyfriend's attorneys released a statement less than 3 hours before a private pre-wedding reception downtown, and by 4 o'clock Milo's phone was filling with messages from people who had not spoken to him in months. The statement never called him a liar. That would have been too simple. Instead, it described a grieving former partner struggling to accept the end of a relationship, implied that Milo had demanded money, and claimed he was using confidential medical documents to disrupt an upcoming marriage. Attached was a screenshot from an old message Milo had sent after losing the pregnancy. Please do not leave me too. They had removed everything around it. Not the hospital discharge. Not the grief. Not the messages where his ex promised they would survive this together. Just one desperate sentence, floating alone like proof that Milo had always been unstable. He stared at the screen inside Dorian's conference room. That is clever. Dorian stood across from him, frighteningly still. It is selective. It makes me look obsessed. It makes you look like someone who had just experienced a loss and was afraid of losing his relationship too. Milo laughed without humor. You know that. People reading this do not. Another notification appeared. Then another. Someone had found Milo's restoration studio online. A review appeared from an account he did not recognize. Unprofessional and emotionally unstable owner. Milo's stomach dropped. His work. Of course they had found the one place he still felt whole. They are going after my business. Dorian immediately picked up his phone. My team can document coordinated activity and contact the platforms. Dorian. He stopped. Milo appreciated that he stopped. Do that, Milo said. But do not make it disappear because your name is bigger than mine. I will not. Good. Milo put the phone down, but his fingers would not stop trembling. That evening, independent counsel recommended formally serving preservation materials at the reception because the groom's legal representatives and several relevant foundation-connected parties would already be present. Milo hated the idea. He agreed anyway. I am coming with you, Dorian said. As counsel? Milo asked. A pause. If you want me there. Milo looked at him. I do. The reception occupied the rooftop level of a luxury hotel, all white flowers, glass walls, and people dressed as though embarrassment was something that happened only to poorer families. Milo arrived carrying the original invitation inside a protective case. Dorian walked beside him in a dark suit, and the room reacted to Dorian before anyone reacted to Milo. Conversations lowered. People moved aside. Milo noticed Dorian's father near the windows, watching them with an expression that revealed nothing. Then Milo saw his ex's perfect tuxedo, perfect posture, perfect smile. Beside him stood the Omega he planned to marry, elegant and pale in cream-colored formal wear. The Omega looked at Milo not with triumph, but confusion. That somehow made everything worse. "You actually came," Milo's ex said. "You told everyone I was trying to interfere with your wedding," Milo replied. "I came to make sure the records are preserved. Nothing more." Several guests had already turned toward them. His ex sighed theatrically. "Milo, please. Not here." The words were designed for an audience. Milo recognized that now. "Your attorneys chose public accusations," he said. "I chose documentation." "Documentation?" His ex laughed softly. "You mean private papers you stole?" Whispers spread. Milo's face burned. "They had my name on them. And now you have Dorian Voss representing you." His ex looked toward Dorian. "Interesting upgrade." Milo stiffened. "What is that supposed to mean?" "You always wanted someone to make you feel important." The sentence struck exactly where it was aimed. Before Milo could answer, one of the groom's attorneys stepped forward with printed pages. "Perhaps everyone should understand the financial arrangement here." Milo frowned. The attorney held up a copy of Dorian's engagement letter and the independent conflict agreement. Selected lines had been highlighted. Legal services, costs advanced, outside counsel funded. "Mr. Sutter claims he wants nothing," the attorney said. "Yet one of the wealthiest legal families in the city is financing his dispute." Milo's stomach turned. It was technically true and completely distorted. "That arrangement exists because of the Voss Foundation conflict," Milo said. "According to Mr. Voss," his ex replied. "How convenient." Eyes shifted toward Dorian. Milo waited for him to destroy the accusation in one sentence. Dorian could do it. Milo had watched him silence entire rooms. But Dorian said nothing. His gaze had fixed on the documents in the attorney's hand, then on his father across the room. Something was wrong. "Dorian," Milo whispered. Dorian looked at him, and for 1 second Milo saw calculation, anger, and something dangerously close to fear. But still no answer. His ex noticed. Even he cannot defend this. Milo felt the floor disappear beneath him. "Is there something else I do not know?" he asked Dorian quietly. "Milo, not yet." 2 words. Wrong words. The room vanished around him. Not yet. The clinic connection had been not yet. The family foundation had been not yet. Every person who controlled Milo's choices seemed to have their own version of not yet. "You promised," Milo said. Dorian stepped toward him. Milo stepped back. Dorian stopped instantly. "There is something happening here that I need to confirm before I speak." "Something involving me?" Dorian's silence lasted half a second too long. Milo's chest hurt. Around them, strangers were watching him become exactly what the statement claimed. Emotional, confused, publicly unraveling over an alpha. He hated them for seeing it. He hated himself more for caring whether Dorian would choose him in front of them. "I should have known," Milo whispered. Dorian's composure finally cracked. "Do not say that." "Why?" "Because trusting you is not stupid." Milo gave a small, broken laugh. "You already used that line." He picked up the protective case containing the invitation. His ex smiled faintly, as though the evening had gone exactly according to plan. Milo saw it and understood the cruelty of the entire strategy. They did not need to disprove the evidence tonight. They only needed to make Milo look too unstable to deserve belief. He turned toward the elevator. "Milo." Dorian's voice followed him. Milo stopped, but did not turn around. Part of him begged Dorian to say something. "Anything. Choose me. Not romantically. Not dramatically. Just once, when everyone was watching, tell them I am not what they say I am." Instead, Dorian said, "Please give me 10 minutes. Milo closed his eyes. 6 months ago, he had waited for an alpha to tell him what was happening to his own life. He could not do it again. "No," he said softly. The elevator doors opened. Milo stepped inside alone. Just before they closed, he looked back. Dorian had not followed him. He was standing in the center of the reception, staring at the papers in the other attorney's hand, while his father watched from across the room. Then the doors shut between them. Milo descended 27 floors holding the evidence against his chest, and for the first time since meeting Dorian Voss, Being alone felt worse than it had before he knew what it was like not to be. The elevator had reached the 12th floor when Milo's phone rang. Dorian. Milo watched it until the call disappeared. 10 seconds later, a message arrived. Please come back upstairs. Not for me. For yourself. Milo almost laughed. Then a second message appeared from the independent attorney. The documents presented upstairs have been altered. Dorian identified it. Milo stared at those words. The elevator reached the lobby. The doors opened. He could leave. 6 months ago, leaving would have felt like survival. Tonight it felt like letting someone else write the ending again. Milo pressed 27. When the elevator doors reopened, the reception had changed. Nobody was drinking champagne anymore. Dorian stood beside the long white table where Milo's ex and his attorneys had displayed their papers. His father remained near the windows, but now 2 foundation board members stood beside him. On the table lay the engagement agreement that had supposedly proved Milo was being financed for revenge. Dorian had placed another document beside it. Before Mr. Sutter returns, one attorney said sharply, "This discussion should end." "No," Dorian replied. "It should have ended before you presented altered documents as evidence." The room went silent. Milo stepped out of the elevator. Dorian saw him immediately. Something changed in his face, but he did not approach. He remembered the boundary. "Milo," he said, "may I explain what I should have explained 10 minutes ago?" Every eye turned toward Milo. For once, he did not shrink beneath them. "Explain." Dorian pointed to the highlighted agreement. The version they displayed omitted the page identifying why outside counsel was funded. That funding was not a personal gift to Milo. It was required because my family foundation had financial ties to the clinic. I disclosed that conflict, arranged independent oversight, and offered to remove myself entirely. He placed the complete agreement beside the edited copy. Same page numbers. One missing page in the version used against Milo. Milo's pulse quickened. Another missing page. Dorian continued. I was silent because I recognized the omission and saw my father react to it. I needed to determine whether the foundation had authorized this disclosure. His gaze moved to the older alpha. It did not. Dorian's father spoke for the first time. The foundation did not provide these documents, and it will cooperate with the independent review. A murmur swept through the room. Dorian turned toward Milo's ex. You have repeatedly relied on the same strategy. Remove context, then call Milo confused when he notices what is missing. His ex's face tightened. That proves nothing about the medication. Correct, Dorian said. Milo proves that. He reached for the protective case Milo carried, then stopped. Even now, even here. May I? Milo looked at his hand, waiting in the space between them. Yes. Dorian took the case and placed it on the table. He did not open it himself. He stepped aside. Show them. Milo understood what Dorian was doing. He could have delivered the argument. He could have made Milo disappear behind the Voss name and called it protection. Instead, he gave Milo the room. Milo opened the case. This prescription was hidden inside the invitation I received. I knew the lining had been altered because paper conservation is my profession. Someone near the bar whispered. He found it himself? Milo ignored them. He placed copies of the pharmacy packet beside it. The prescription and these dispensing documents carry matching compression marks. They were once assembled together. Page 6 was later removed. He set the recovered page down. This is page 6. His ex went pale. Milo's voice remained steady. It claims I acknowledged the medication before receiving it. I did not. You cannot prove that, his ex said. Milo looked at him. Months ago, those words would have destroyed him. Tonight they almost made him smile. Actually, I can explain why the signature is not mine. Whoever copied it reproduced the shape, but not the stroke sequence I use when signing. An independent document examiner is already reviewing the original. Dorian added, and the pharmacy has preserved access records showing that counsel for your side contacted them after our preservation notice and asked whether the file could be amended. The Omega standing beside Milo's ex slowly removed his hand from the groom's arm. You told me he knew, he said quietly. Milo's ex turned toward him. This is being twisted. Did he know? No answer. That silence accomplished what Milo never could. The Omega stepped away. Then there is no wedding until I know exactly what you did. The perfect future Milo's ex had sacrificed everything to obtain did not explode dramatically. It simply walked away from him. Milo felt no triumph at another Omega's pain. Only relief that the lie had stopped collecting victims. His ex moved toward Milo. "You ruined my life." Dorian stepped between them before Milo could react. He did not touch the man. He simply became an immovable line in a dark suit. "No," Dorian said. "You made decisions believing Milo would remain ashamed enough to protect you from the consequences." His voice dropped colder. "You do not get to make another choice for him." The room was utterly silent. Then Dorian did something Milo did not expect. He turned away from his ex completely, as though the man no longer deserved the center of the story. Dorian faced Milo instead. "I failed you tonight." Milo swallowed. "Dorian, I thought being certain before speaking would protect you. It protected my comfort with control." His father was listening. His colleagues were listening. Everyone was. "If remaining on this case damages your trust in the process, I will withdraw tonight. If standing against my family costs me my position with the Foundation, I accept that too. I will not ask you to sacrifice one more choice so I can keep mine." Milo stared at him. This was not rescue. Rescue would have been Dorian deciding everything. This was recognition. Dorian was placing power back where it belonged. Milo looked around the room that had judged him an hour earlier. Nobody looked at him with pity now. They had watched him explain the evidence. They knew whose skill had found the missing truth. Milo closed the protective case himself. "I want independent counsel to remain." Dorian nodded. "Of course. And I want you to stay." Dorian went very still. Milo's voice softened. "Not because I need an alpha to fight for me." He looked at the evidence, then back at Dorian. "Because when it mattered, you finally understood that standing beside me is different from standing in front of me." For the first time all evening, Dorian smiled. Small. Private. Only for Milo. Milo reached for his hand in front of everyone. Dorian let him decide the distance between them. Their fingers met. Around them, the perfect wedding narrative was collapsing under the weight of its own missing pages. But Milo no longer cared about being chosen over somebody else. He had chosen himself first. And when Dorian's hand closed carefully around his, Milo realized there was still one choice between them neither man had been brave enough to name. 3 months later, Milo stood behind the same restoration table, where a wedding invitation had once cracked his life open. The studio looked almost unchanged. Same brass lamp. Same shelves of linen thread and archival board. Same stubborn window that rattled whenever the wind came off the river. Milo was different. The legal review had concluded that the medical acknowledgement bearing his name was not authentic, and the preserved pharmacy records supported the timeline he had fought to establish. His former boyfriend's attempt to alter the narrative after the preservation notice became part of the record as well. The wedding never happened. The clinic opened an independent compliance investigation, and Milo accepted a formal settlement only after his own attorney confirmed every condition had been written according to his instructions. He did not celebrate any of it. There was no version of justice that returned what he had lost. But there was justice in waking up and no longer believing his body had betrayed him. There was justice in knowing the truth had his name on it now. The original invitation rested inside an evidence box on the highest shelf. Milo had considered destroying it. Instead, he preserved it. Not because it deserved saving, but because he did. The bell above the studio door chimed at 6:15. Dorian stepped inside carrying takeout and automatically paused near the entrance. "Your scent blockers are on," Milo said without looking up. "Yes. You know you do not have to announce yourself like a hazardous material shipment. You complained last week that I smelled like cedar in your 19th century poetry section. You distracted me. That sounds like a you problem." Milo looked up. Dorian Voss had learned sarcasm. This was either emotional growth or a public safety concern. 3 months of therapy and independent oversight. And this is what I get. Milo asked. Dorian set the food down. "You also got dumplings." Acceptable. Their relationship had developed slowly after the reception. Painfully slowly, according to Milo. Appropriately slowly, according to Dorian. Dorian remained on the case only under independent supervision. He recused himself from every Foundation decision connected to the investigation. Then, when his father offered him the chairmanship he had been trained his entire life to inherit, Dorian declined. Not dramatically. Not because Milo asked. Milo had specifically refused to ask. Dorian simply decided he no longer wanted a life where control was confused with responsibility. He kept his law practice. He kept the old silver ring. He started having dinner with Milo twice a week. Then 3 times. Somewhere between legal briefs, Rainey drives home, repaired books, and Dorian discovering that Milo considered frozen waffles a legitimate dinner, obligation became friendship. Friendship became something neither of them could pretend not to notice. Dorian glanced toward the work table. I brought something else. Milo narrowed his eyes. If it requires notarization, leave. That is deeply offensive. Dorian removed a cream-colored envelope from his coat. Milo stared at it. For one strange second, the room folded backward in time. Heavy paper. An envelope. His name written across the front. Dorian noticed the change in his face immediately. I can take it back. Milo looked at him. What is it? A question. That sounds dangerous. Probably. Dorian placed the envelope on the table, but did not push it toward him. You can open it tonight. Next month. Never. Nothing changes if you say no. Milo almost laughed because of course Dorian had somehow turned an envelope into informed consent. He picked it up. Inside was a photograph of a small brick house 15 minutes from Milo's studio. Attached was a single page describing the property. 2 bedrooms. A sunny kitchen. A detached room suitable for a restoration workshop. At the bottom, Dorian had written, I would like to build a home with you. I would also like you to choose which home. Milo read it twice. Then he noticed another sheet. A blank list headed things Milo refuses to compromise on. You made me a negotiation worksheet? Dorian looked suddenly less comfortable than he had facing an entire room of hostile attorneys. I thought it was practical. It is the least romantic thing anyone has ever given me. I can leave. Milo caught his wrist. Dorian stopped instantly. Milo smiled. I did not say I hated it. Something vulnerable crossed Dorian's face. I am not asking because I think you need somewhere safer to live. Good. I am not asking because I think being your alpha gives me a claim on your future. Very good. Dorian took a breath. I am asking because the best part of my day has become the moment I walk through that door and you insult my food choices. Milo's throat tightened. Your food choices deserve accountability. I know. And if I say I am not ready, then I bring dinner on Tuesday. And if I say yes, Dorian's voice softened. Then we choose together. Milo looked down at the page. Months earlier, another piece of paper had shown him how completely someone he loved had removed him from the decisions shaping his own life. He had been frightened of prescriptions, signatures, contracts, even invitations. Paper had become proof that choices could be stolen. Milo picked up a pen. Dorian did not move closer. Milo wrote beneath the heading, Big windows. Separate workspaces. No white carpet. Dorian leaned slightly forward. The carpet feels unnecessarily specific. Non-negotiable. Milo added one final line. Dorian gets a key because Milo chooses to give him one. Dorian stopped breathing for approximately 1 second. Milo signed his name beneath it. Not because someone told him where. Not because someone had already decided what the signature meant. Because he had read every word. Because he understood the choice. Because it was his. He handed Dorian the pen. Dorian signed beside him. Later, they locked the studio together and stepped onto the sidewalk beneath a clear evening sky. Dorian offered his hand without reaching first. Milo looked at it, remembering the frightened man who had once believed losing a pregnancy meant he had failed. The man who apologized for being abandoned. The man who thought being chosen by an alpha determined his worth. That man was still part of him. He simply no longer controlled the ending. Milo slipped his fingers through Dorian's. This time, no hidden page decided his future. Milo did.